intros. And so the conversation goes a little longer than normal. So this week we're gonna keep it short and sweet on the intros. Okay. Oh, sorry, y'all. Bear with me, like I said. Okay. You guys don't have to be quiet though. You guys can laugh at me and do all the things. It's okay. It's okay. I'm all for it.
All right. As we're watching you struggle right now. Did you get it on YouTube?
I mean, hey,
Oh,
what,
you did? Okay, good. Yeah,
what better way to learn than to see Amanda struggle
Exactly.
and make mistakes, and you guys all watch me, jump as I hear myself talking while I'm trying to record. So it's okay. It's okay. I hope it motivates you all. Hope we'll all start YouTube channels together. How about that?
I've been thinking about that, but I just don't know where to start or where to go.
Well, here we
I remember
go.
when I was a young kid, I had YouTube, but that was it.
Lesson 101.
Those are like vaulted videos now.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so it is 10:03. I don't want to waste any time because minutes in our conversations are dollars. So I'm Amanda Boyd, the founder of Nurses in Tech. Excited to have you guys on here today. We are chatting with Connor, the founder of NurseRecruit, who I am so excited to chat with. Always excited to chat with Connor about all the amazing things that he's doing, how NurseRecruit was founded and what problem he solves, and always to hear his motivation and his message to nurses that have not been in the field for that long. So before we do that, if you want to back camera and do come on camera and do an intro, just tell us your name, what type of nurse you are, and where you're located.
I'll start. Good morning. My name is Michael Loomis. I am an OB nurse, labor and delivery postpartum NICU, and I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
And Michael, maybe I missed something. What else do you do, Michael? Because Michael actually works in tech. I wouldn't even say works in tech. He is tech.
I use the term clinical solutions developer, but I have been doing full stack development and have some projects ongoing for the OB world and other ideas kind of brewing as well.
Yeah. In the simplest terms, he's a software developer, you guys, a real one.
That's wow. Oh my.
Yeah. Brianna, it's nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's nice to see you guys. It's nice to meet you, Michael, Connor, Amanda. I have two screens up, so sorry I'm looking like all over the place.
No,
yeah. So my name is Brianna. I'm a registered nurse. I work right now as a public health analyst. Always been very much interested in the informatics space and innovation space. So right now I'm kind of sort of going back to my childhood dream of being a traveling writer. So at this point, I really like to create content and write about the things that I've learned along my journey in the informatics and innovation space. So consider me a content creator and also a nursepreneur recruiter. So I'm really excited to learn about what Connor has created, what he does, and just all the stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited to share that.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. I love seeing your face, Brianna. Titus, are you able? You don't have to come off camera, but if you want to just introduce yourself real quick, that would be great. If you don't, you can. If you don't want to do it verbally, you can do it in the chat.
My name is Sabella. I'm a registered nurse. I'm working at the moment as disability case manager. So I transitioned from bedside to that. So I'm just trying to find maybe something else to do. I don't know if I want to stay on the health side. Maybe I'm gonna transition in more IT, but we will see.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry for messing your name up. That is my fault. We are glad that you are here with us today to hear this conversation. So it's pretty informal, these conversations. So feel free to jump in, you guys, ask questions at any part of the conversation. really informal. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So Connor, I've already introduced, and so we're going to jump into the questions.
Awesome. All right, I'm ready.
All right. First question for Connor is, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to NurseRecruit, and then give us a little information background on what NurseRecruit is?
Of course, yeah. So I basically started NurseRecruit when I was in nursing school. Before it actually became NurseRecruit, I was the president of our student association. It was a very small, I say it's a small school, but it had a large nursing school to it. So there was a lot of presence with nurses in the school. I think we had a cohort of over 1,200 nursing students, which is quite large, so pretty big for at least a Canadian school. And what we did is we kind of set out on creating some new ways for nursing students to connect with employers to figure out what kind of opportunities lie ahead. I came from a line of nurses, so my grandma was a nurse, my aunt was a nurse, and I used to actually go out to my aunt's in Los Angeles and kind of follow her workplace. She worked at UCLA Health. I learned a lot from her there. I got to meet a ton of different nurses in terms of what they did and kind of navigated that. So I've got a lot of knowledge on that. And I thought it would be a great way to kind of see other nursing students gain that knowledge through different kind of platforms. So we set out to host a virtual career fair for nursing students at my school. And it actually gained media attention. It grew pretty big. We had over 30 employers from across Canada attend, plus one from Buffalo. And we also had about 300 nursing students attend it, which is quite large for our school of 1,200. It was an awesome kind of opportunity. And when I look at it too, the university hosts their own career fairs for more like general majors. It's a university of 10,000 people. They typically have 400 students attend these career fairs. So it really showed the impact and the interest from nurses. And I thought this was an awesome way to kind of start this. Once I graduated nursing school, I actually started working on the business plan for NurseRecruit. We got funding right away, which was awesome. We were able to secure some funding and kind of carry on this journey of hosting virtual job fairs, building connections between students, new grads, and nursing professionals across Canada, now the US as well. We've brought on a lot of different employers and just kind of building those connections. So we then started NurseRecruit and founded it in 2023. So it's only been a year and a bit now. So we're very novel, but we have done quite a lot on terms of our capacity and impact that we've already had. I think to date, we've connected almost 1,200 new grads and nursing students with employers, which is quite a lot in terms of volume. So we've got about 30 employers we work with. And yeah, that's pretty much how I started it. Securing the funding was one of the hardest parts. I didn't really know where to turn or how to even start a business. So there was a lot of kind of research that went into it. I was also trying to study for my NCLEX at the time. And it was a lot of back and forth. Yeah, it was a lot. When I finally went to go start the business and kind of get everything set up, we secured that funding. I went and then wrote my NCLEX as well. And I will have to say, like, I did fail the first time. I think there was a lot going on, and it kind of put me down because I was like, oh no, like, how am I supposed to run this business if I don't even have my nursing license? But we got so involved in things right away. There was a lot of students reaching out to us, employers reaching out to us, that I kind of put it on the back burner for a little bit. And then I came back to it and wrote my NCLEX again and got it passed in the second time. So that was awesome. And I think I was just more confident then as well in terms of studying. And it took about 8 months between the first time I failed and the second time. So that kind of shows you like how much we've kind of worked on NurseRecruit and what we've done so far with it. We've now done a lot of pivoting as well, so I'm excited to kind of share that today, but that is also what we've been working on and building up, and that's pretty much where we're at right now. We're hosting a couple of virtual job fairs a year, connecting those students. We're getting more. Oh yeah, I see Amanda.
I gotta slow you down, Connor. I gotta slow you down, okay?
Oh yeah,
because
yeah. There's a lot to share, so trying to pack it all in. Yeah.
Lots to share. Before I ask him questions, anybody have some questions for Connor? Before I jump in. He said
what gets me, Connor, I guess this is not really a question, it's more like a statement, but what gets me is the fact that you were creating a nursing business while you were still in nursing school. That gets me. I mean, so you knew that you wanted to be in business even before, and that you wanted to create a business in the healthcare space. That's what it seemed like.
It's definitely actually to kind of go off that the path that I was actually going towards was more research oriented. I was doing research on global health, COVID-19, policy impacts from the response from different G7 countries. That's where I was going towards. And then this kind of came up to me, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to take the leap, jump into the business world, and kind of follow through with that. And it's created a whole new path for me, which I'm really excited to kind of share too. But that's definitely something that like really was hard. And I also was in an accelerated nursing program, so we took a 4-year program and put it into 2. So I was balancing that plus starting a career. Yes, there was a lot going on, but I found ways to kind of keep myself anchored down, and I rollerblade a lot, so I do that all the time. And when it's nice and sunny here, I live in Canada, so it snows quite a lot too, but try and get outdoors and travel and figure out those things to kind of balance everything as well.
Yeah, I mean, failing the NCLEX the first, I think even passing the NCLEX period with all of that going on,
so
an
hard.
accelerated program, starting a business. Wow, it's very inspiring.
It was a crazy time, yeah. And I honestly I think I felt a little defeated failing the NCLEX the first time. Like I spent all this time studying, I was so ready for it, or I thought I was, and all these testing programs were like, yeah, you're ready, you're gonna pass this. I went in there and I spent probably only an hour in the testing room and failed it. And I was like, oh no, that's not good. Like what happened? And then I didn't really have time to go back and study more. I was like, oh, I'll set aside 2 months and study again and try and pass it. Never really had that. I just kind of took the leap and said, you know what, I'm going to go write it again. I've got this knowledge. I learned so much in clinicals. I had a very diverse kind of clinical experience from going into ICU, trauma. We had community hospitals and everything in between. So
Wow.
Yeah. So I love so much about Connor's story, and we could really spend time talking about a lot of this, right? Because I felt the NCLEX the first time. Okay, I did. I can totally relate to that feeling of like, what? How? Right? So, but that's a whole nother conversation. I love the idea that you said Connor knew that he wanted to start a nursing business while he was in nursing school, right? Connor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's that he knew he wanted to start a business. I think he knew that there was a problem that needed to be solved. Am I right or wrong?
100%. Yeah, it was definitely more of a problem. I actually started doing research in my thesis in my degree, where I looked at nursing retention across Ontario, specifically in the ICU and ED. Those seem to be some of the hardest hit areas. They're very unique specialties in nursing as well. And that's where I found there was a huge gap. There's a lot of knowledge lost, and there's a lot of nurses that wanted to leave the field. So I was trying to find ways, how can we kind of bring them back into the field? How can we utilize them in different ways? How can they separate their degree from their actual field too? The BSCN or the BSN that you receive has a lot of different courses you take, and you can utilize that to a lot of different areas. So we kind of set forth on that. We also found that nursing students didn't really know where to go. They had a lot of opportunities being presented to them or they didn't. And it was about navigating that. So we really wanted to help them navigate it. And that's kind of where I started NurseRecruit from, is that knowledge and learning that. So
yeah. So let's talk about this career fair. Tell us about NurseRecruit, and
okay,
tell us
yes.
about what NurseRecruit does and why NurseRecruit is so hot right now. Everybody wants to talk to Connor.
Yeah, so we had a virtual career fair, a virtual job fair in March. At the end of March, we invited a bunch of new graduates. We had over 500 new grads attend it. We had about 30 employers, including employers from Australia, Canada, and the US. So it grew quite a lot. We've been growing our client base quite a lot as well. I think there's a lot of interest and need for connecting with nurses. And it's not always something you can do in person as well. There is a lot of in-person job fairs, but it's a matter of getting to a large city, connecting with those employers versus you can do it virtually from the comfort of your home, from your workplace, from anywhere that you're at, and trying to connect even more. So we try to make it as accessible as possible with these job fairs. And we do have another job fair coming up in May, which I'm super excited about. It's called the Beyond Bedside. So we're really focusing on connecting nursing opportunities that are outside of those bedside roles in either consulting roles, clinical management, or even starting your own business. The company that I went through, it's a nonprofit that kind of helped me get started with NurseRecruit, is coming out to help nurses find ways to start their own businesses, get involved in the business world, find funding as well and resources. And I think that's super important, because what I hear from a lot of nurses is, I want to get into my own business, but how do I start? And this was the way that I started. And it probably wasn't the like everyone's first kind of choice to do, but I found it to be super resourceful, and it's helped me kind of get to this point now too. With the Beyond Bedside too, we've got a lot of unique kind of Q&A panels happening. So we have some nurses from different specialties coming out. We've got a legal nurse consultant. We have a nurse writer. We've got the Chief Nursing Officer of Canada, which is a huge role that's been kind of developed in Canada recently again, after a hiatus for a little bit. And it's kind of directing where nurses are needed. They've created a retention toolkit for employers and for nurses as well to kind of read. So she'll be sharing that, and that's kind of what we're doing with this event. It's created a job fair and turned it into more of a larger event. So I'm excited to share that with people as well.
Yeah. Any questions? I'm gonna stop there for questions about anything that Connor has said so far. He says so much. You got to process
Oh, there's
all
so
of what
much. Yeah. I added the virtual event in the chat as well for anyone that wanted to take a look at it.
Yeah, that was my
A lot
next
that's
question.
happening with it. We're currently in the process of updating the website as well, because we've added on a lot of different panelists, and it's been happening the last couple of weeks. It's been so busy. So
Yeah. So tell us, while people are thinking about their questions, kind of tell us all of what goes into these career fairs behind the scenes.
Oh, so much. Okay, yeah. So to do a virtual career fair, we've kind of leveraged technology from a different company, and we've kind of incorporated into our own and our website as well. There's a lot of work that goes into the planning of it, connecting with employers, connecting with nurses, and trying to find the right avenues to kind of bridge that, because you can have career fairs where you've got employers looking for a certain specific nurse or a certain region, and then you've got all these nurses that aren't from that. So we really have to kind of connect the two. That takes a lot of time in terms of advertising or even just making those connections. But we coordinate with the employers, we bring them on, we set up their virtual booths, we kind of help them through the process and give them that space to ask questions. And then we bring on the nurses and present them, this is the opportunities you have. These are some unique ways to connect with the employers. It can be through chat, it can be through a video call, everything like that. And we kind of put a good like month or two into each virtual career fair, which is quite a lot in terms of work, but I think it's so beneficial for nurses to utilize them. So I'm willing to do the work.
Yeah. So what's the future of NurseRecruit? What's next? What is the next year?
Oh wow, this is a big question.
5 years look like? Yeah.
Okay. So Patience, do you have a question there?
Yeah, I did, but
Patience, you know we don't raise hands around here.
sorry. Trying to be a little polite. But I was gonna ask if you could like talk about the technology. Like, are you guys using like a third party for the technology, or did you like build out, or are you trying to build out like your own virtual, like, or is it like a kind of like the Zoom thing, or what?
Yeah. That was actually a really complex part for us. I wasn't sure what we wanted to do at the start when we came up with the virtual career fairs. The first time I did it as a nursing student, it was leveraging the technology from one company just for a one-time event. It was very costly, but we actually ended up breaking even on that, which is awesome. So it was good. And some went back to the Nursing Student Association too. When I started NurseRecruit, though, it was really finding the best deal and the best way to kind of put together this. Building our own technology, those type of platforms can be very costly. I actually started looking for quotes and seeing what could be done through that. I was getting quotes of upwards of $500,000 US, which is a lot to build that platform. And especially when you can use like a Zoom API and something and build it kind of into it. But we decided to look at current organizations that were utilizing technology like this and see what they offer. And we did partner with a third party to kind of promote these events and put them on and host them. We have a whole project management team from them, and it really just kind of helped me as a business as well, because there's only 3 of us really that work on this, and there's a whole project management team that they provide us with. And we got the cost down to be quite effective to be able to do that. But the next step, and kind of answering now to Amanda's question too, is the next step is really to build our own technology. We're really growing that side of it. So we started actually by building a job board, but the next step is to build a virtual platform that allows nurses to connect with employers too, but also to connect with each other. It's going to be more through like videos and connections that way, and events and small pop-up events, but that's really what we've created now. So
yeah. Well,
and then like the overarching, Oh no,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, Amanda. I'll let you go.
Yeah. I'm all for creating small groups of interaction and conversation.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yes.
It's so imperative that we create ways for every stakeholder to be a part of conversations continuously, right? To have that
100%.
continuous dialogue.
Yeah.
And also be ready. We have to be ready to shift when the shift is needed. So create these structured options using technology, but that they're not so structured that they can't adjust and we can't change, right? So it's this ongoing long-term development of relationship. And I know the technical term feedback loop, right? So we have these small
Yes.
groups.
Yeah.
If I get all educational on you and talk about focus groups and small forums and creating conversation and dialogue to have feedback loops and all that, or I could just say it real simple, right? You're creating a way so that all the stakeholders, right, in this process of recruitment, right, regardless of whether you're a student nurse or you've been in nursing forever, where we can continually have these conversations, right, about
Yes,
recruitment.
exactly.
Right?
And connect.
So we're going to go
Yeah.
into a real conversation here about the recruitment process, which I think is a great conversation for us to have, because one of the things that Connor shared with me is that even in building this NurseRecruit, and even right now today, his feeling of not belonging because he's not from HR, right? He didn't go through an HR program. And of course, if you know me being me, my first question was, why go through an HR for what? Recruitment, no, everywhere is long, drawn out, and just totally not working. It's not working, right?
It's an
So I
over
want to talk
complex
about
process. Yeah.
what do you feel like nurse recruiting could look like in the next year to 2 years because of NurseRecruit?
Yeah, I really think like in terms of nurse recruitment, technology is really going to be a key factor here in simplifying the process. We're short nurses all over the world. We're also short HR staff. So when you combine the two, it creates for an even larger problem. Human resource departments, talent acquisition teams, they're pretty well like over their heads right now in different profiles and different resumes and trying to get through that. So we're trying to create ways where we can simplify that process, whether it be through a job board, connecting virtually, or even connecting in person, although most people like to connect virtually these days. But that seems to be the best way to kind of do it and build those connections from there and allow the recruiters and the nurses or even the students to understand what the complex process is, what they need to be ready for, and how they can prepare for it. So we're really trying to bring in those educational pieces in terms of how do you prepare for applying to jobs for nursing students, but also for nursing professionals that might want to career shift or change their careers. We're bringing in that piece. We're connecting them with the technology, connecting them with the recruiters and nurses from those organizations as well. I think it's very important to have those perspectives from people that are actually working there. There's a lot of companies out there now, and there's a lot of social media pages or groups that you can join that kind of give you some insight into working for a certain company, but we want to take it to the next level and provide that content as well and showcase the unique aspects of a different organization or a role too. I was telling Amanda, I read a LinkedIn comment the other day on a post that I had reposted, and one of the things was, how do I understand a role in terms of from the job description when it's very copy and pasted or it's very generic, and when I go to the role, it's a completely different kind of story. So we're trying to work on ways to bring that together into our job board, into the job fairs, and really share those experiences too.
Yeah.
But I do
Any
see, like,
questions?
I
We'll
think,
open up for questions.
oh yeah,
We like
yeah,
we
feel
like
free to
conversation
pop in at
here.
any time. Yeah.
Hi, Connor. Joe Harrison here. I have a question.
Okay.
I don't know if this is totally out of left field, but I'm a nurse practitioner, and I've just started a company helping nurses and nurse practitioners create their own professional corporation. And then
Oh,
if they
that's
want
awesome.
to
Yes.
build, if they want to build their own, their own healthcare company, we can help them with that. But I just wondered, listening to you, it made me think about, a lot of physicians will contract with hospitals through their own PC, their own professional corporation, and there are all these, there are tax benefits to it
Yes.
for them. And I'm wondering, is that realistic for nurses? Like, can nurses, do you think that companies like health systems would hire nurses through their own PC? Or do they want to hire them only through their own social security number or tax ID?
I think it's mainly like the current process definitely is just hiring through like their own tax ID social security. But it is also a really big kind of topic that's being talked about right now is medical billing and such. So nurses, especially in Canada and the US, they're not able to bill for anything that they provide care-wise, where doctors can, and there's a huge conversation on that. And I think that'll also kind of shift the way that nurses can get paid or can go to an organization, and that might actually shift in terms of like a professional corporation creating that and working for it. In the travel nursing industry too, like a lot of nurses do have their own corporation or they're sole proprietors, and they're able to bill organizations for that. And there's a lot more tax benefits to it as well. So I think that's a very like important and like key discussion that needs to be like further talked about and showcased, because if a doctor can do it, I think a nurse can too, and they should have that ability. So
Yeah. And if you think about it, I mean, so I was a travel nurse. I was actually traveling as a CNA in Indy before I was even a nurse, and this is in the 90s, y'all. And I'm gonna tell you what, looking back now, I wish somebody would have told me how I was making history, right? Because by the time I was a nurse, I was actually negotiating my own contracts. So I wasn't using the staffing
that's awesome.
agency anymore. I had gone to enough facilities and worked at enough hospitals as a travel CNA, so patient care tech, that I had built my own relationships. And so the third year that I was a nurse, I decided I'll just write my own contract. I'm going to figure out how I could write the contract, right? I'm at the hospital. I know the people that came from. I have to go through the agency for everything for they want to keep up on my credentials, right? They want to make sure my folder is correct, but they're sending me emails for me to send them the work when I have it all organized myself, right? I can tell them my schedule. If there's a problem, they're asking me problems for other nurses. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know who can handle that. Right. So I finally figured out I don't really need y'all. Y'all need me. I don't really. And this contract that you're giving me, that means the CEO of this staffing company got to get some money. Right. The people that work in the office got to get some money. Right. Before I even get any money. Yep. So how about I just remove all of y'all? And it's just the hospital and me.
Exactly. And I think there is a lot of nurses that do that now too. They negotiate their own contracts and they look for ways of doing that. I see a lot of chatter in like travel nursing Facebook groups in Canada where nurses are looking for alternatives to staffing agencies. So it's really cool that you bring up that point, Amanda, too. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I bring that up to say this. This is the biggest roadblock to that is nurses understanding the legalities.
Yes. Yeah.
As well as the business aspects. And if before I die and I leave the earth, or before I'm not at Nurses in Tech anymore, if I can help nurses understand the legal and the business and the financial aspects of owning a company, every nurse that I know and I come in contact with will have a business. I don't care what the business is, right? Because that's really the
I love that.
And nobody wants to give the secret sauce. To tell you the truth, the sauce ain't even that secret no more. People just aren't talking about it. They just ain't telling you, right? And so I love these conversations, especially with you, Connor, because Connor was not even a nurse when he started NurseRecruit. He wasn't a nurse. Like, it doesn't matter like how many, I know so many nurses that have so many letters and they have gone to school for so long that at some point it's kind of like, do you really need all that to solve a problem? No. You don't.
Exactly.
Connor is like great representation that sometimes, and I won't say we make it harder because I think society has made it harder for us. We make it harder than it needs to be. If you see a problem, you see a solution, right? In today's age, you're more likely to succeed if you stick to the one problem and the one solution. Now, all you got to do is understand the legal aspects, the business aspects, the professional aspects,
which can be complicated.
Yeah, they can. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't go back to school. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get more education. I'm not saying, but I am saying there are also ways to start, right? And as nurses, we've gone to school, right? We we didn't just go to school. We saved lives, y'all. Like, we save people's lives, okay? Like, we have earned, and we are some amazing people. We save lives. So hell yeah, I can start a business. I can start about 10 of them now that I know this. And so my question not my question, I know I didn't make a question, I made a comment, but my question for Connor is, as we're moving towards the end, is what advice do you have for nurses, all nurses, whether they're new nurses, they've been nurses for 20 years, 50 years, what's your advice?
I think one of the biggest things that I would say is find something that you're passionate about and really stick to it. I think that's something that I struggled with at the beginning. I didn't really want to stick with it. I wasn't sure if it was going to be successful. We've had some up and downs, but the more you stick to it and the more that you involve yourself and gain that knowledge and translate that knowledge too, the better it's going to get. Like, we're still learning so much. We're innovating right now and we're building a lot. The next year for us is going to grow like crazy. Like, there's so much that's going on right now. I've got meetings all day. So like it just shows the context of it. And like maybe 5 months ago, I felt like maybe this wasn't right for me. Maybe I should be shutting this down. It's not really what I want. I didn't see any benefit in it, but I really stuck to my gut and really went with it. And that's been a really beneficial part for me in having a business and starting it and not having much knowledge or not having much, I wouldn't say knowledge, but like having that skill developed. So like for me, I've been a nurse for less than a year. I've just got into nursing and I'm already doing all of this here.
Yep.
So I think there is potential and anyone can really do it. So if you put your mind to it, you can. Yes. Yeah.
So you mean if I have a nursing idea and I am a nurse, because everybody here is a nurse.
Or even a student. Yep. Go for it.
Everybody here. So
Start
if I
researching
have an
it, learn,
idea, you mean it's okay for me to talk about my idea? You mean I shouldn't like hide it and keep it from everybody for fear that somebody might steal my idea?
I think if you can perfect the knowledge and you can understand and have a grasp of what's going on, you're going to succeed anyway. So even if you do share it with other people and you do, there is competition out there. Like, if you do it the right way and you protect that knowledge in yourself and your belief, you'll be able to succeed even more. I think that's something for me with NurseRecruit. We've gone up against some very large corporations all over the world that have a lot of MBAs. They have a lot of people in like executive roles with 20, 30 years of experience, but we're still here and we're still making an impact. So I think that's really important. Yes, and non-disclosures, super important, especially when sharing like the information too. Like, you want to protect yourself to a point because the world is out there and there's people out there that will want to use that idea. But if you can perfect it yourself, then keep going with it and stand by it as well.
Yeah. So what are some of the different stages? I know that you said NurseRecruit was founded in 2013. It became even a concept in 2021. I want to talk about.
We're not that old. I wish it was 2013.
Okay, so it's founded 2023. I'm sorry. Talk to me about some of the stages that you've already gone through in this business development, right? Just as a new founder, and kind of highlight some of the aha moments you've had at these different stages that you had no clue and did not prepare for.
I can definitely go on that for a while, but I'll try and shorten it out. So basically, I started NurseRecruit. We kind of had some traction and validation already for our business just because we hosted a successful virtual career fair. We had some media attention. We had a lot of student feedback. We had a lot of employer feedback. So we kind of jumped right into trying to find some funding. We were able to do that, and I secured some funding right away to start the business and kind of get the basis for it going. I don't think that's always necessarily the first step you should do. There's a lot to do with the research and traction and validation of your business. But we kind of went back actually a couple months after starting NurseRecruit and went back to the validation and traction phase to try and figure out, oh, what do nurses want? Are we doing something that will actually be beneficial to them? Are we also helping employers? Are they connecting with nurses? Are they offering jobs? And it was a lot of work in terms of research. We went through a couple programs. So at my local university here, that it's also my alma mater, they've hosted a couple programs for students and for community members where they can go in and learn about how to start a business, how to get into the startup world, how to seek funding out too. And we went through that, even though we've already gone through that process a bit. We went back to it, started from the basics and kind of built up our business plan again. And we learned so much from it. And I say, seek out as many opportunities as you can for that. Because I'm still doing it. I'm part of another program that I just joined And we're learning even more, and we're adding to our business plan and updating that constantly. And I think that's a really important part too, is updating that business plan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so key. Yeah. I feel like people talk about it a lot. I think our business plan now is like well over 100 pages, and it's just from so many updates and all the traction we've gained. That's a really important stage. We're now also at a stage where we're seeking co-founders. So we're going through a co-founder search in terms of finding someone on the technical side, the marketing side, and everything else to kind of bring it together. We've approached a couple organizations like Y Combinator. There's also a new app that's been developed called Coffee Space. And it's just ways to kind of find co-founders. It is a lot more difficult because we are looking for at least one more nursing co-founder as well. I think it's really important to have that nursing-led innovation there. And these spaces usually don't have many nurses on there. I know that Amanda has been on Y Combinator before, but it's something that you don't really think about looking for, and maybe down the road that could be a space too. But we're definitely looking at that now. We're starting to seek out funding. We've created an MVP for our own technology now, and we're about to launch that. I'm hoping in October we'll have that launched, which is super exciting. So we're going through the testing phases. But I feel like too, with like a business, there's so much that happens, and sometimes you just need to take a step back and look and kind of remap that path or make a pivot if you need to. I have this one book that I started reading at the beginning of this year called The Pivot Year. And this
One
has
of my
definitely
favorites.
been like a big pivot year. So
Yeah. So you said so much stuff.
there's so
What's
much.
the
Yeah, I could unpack it even more,
What's the
but
MVP? What's the MVP for those that don't
so
know?
an MVP is your minimum viable product. So for most investments, they want to see some sort of product before they give you money. They want to see, can you actually build it? Do you have something ready to go? It'll really help in obtaining funds and kind of building on that product. It also helps us on the research side and the development side. We're showing that to nurses, we're showing that to recruiters and employers and saying, what do you like about it? What do you not like? Provide us with the most honest feedback possible so we can make those changes and innovate it even more. So that's basically where we're at with that right now.
Yeah. Questions?
And I can tell you a year ago, I didn't know what an MVP was. So I thought it was something completely different in the sports world. So.
Yeah. So the nurses that I coach, business wise, we always start. Amanda, if you get to know me and you talk to me regularly, you'll find I like the path with least resistance, right? I like the path that allows you to find a thing, tackle that thing, go through the ups and the downs of the thing so that you can learn and you can grow and you can be successful, because I believe even in failure, there are lessons for us to learn. And the death of every great idea in every great business is fear. That is the death of every one of them. You know why? Because people never start, or they start too late, or they start and then they're all excited about it for a day or 2 weeks, and then they put it away, and then they go on and try to start something else, and then they get scared of that thing and they don't do anything with that. Listen, where we are in healthcare, and I know I'm making it sound real simple, but the reality is nurses are needed at the front of healthcare. And the only way that nurses take their place at the front is they get over all of the fear that they have of speaking out, of starting a business, of saying what they have to say, of starting an invention, in saying, oh, no, that's not how that should be done. No, we don't want to do that. No, patients aren't being saved and patient care isn't easier by this. No, your rules don't work. No, that new product or tool that you just partner with, that doesn't work either. That makes my job harder. It doesn't make my job easier, right? No, all of you CEO people making decisions who have never been a nurse a day in your life, but you got a whole lot of money so you can say what you want to say. No, you shouldn't be making these decisions, right? And the only way we do that is by we address our fears, right? So every nurse that I work with in my business coaching, I have them do two things within the first 3 sessions. One is write a list of skills, write a list of the things that they would do and they love to do and they would do all day, every day if nobody ever paid them, right? Because in that list is at least a good 3 to 5 things, at least a good 3 to 5 business ideas. That's the very first thing I have them do. They all think it's the craziest thing. And what's funny is it's also one of the hardest assignments. I can tell you that probably 60% of the nurses that I've given this assignment to on the next call, they don't have a list. And they'll have a whole long out explanation that they started it. They wasn't really sure, what should it be? Should it be popular? Should it be job titles? it should be whatever you desire and whatever you would really want to do with your life. Like it doesn't, there's no right or wrong answer. The second thing I make sure that they do is to understand what an MVP is. And I link them to the book and I link them to the website of starting a lean business so they can start to understand how, not simple, but how to get through the weeds of actually creating a business idea, solving one problem. You see one problem, you have a solution for that problem, and now you move forward. And a lot of times, so one of the things that I was really celebrated for at the beginning of Nurses in Tech was starting a community first, right? And in all the interviews I've had with people and people that ask me questions, I always get asked, so what is the end goal of Nurses in Tech? And I have to tell them, Nurses in Tech is the end goal. The end goal of Nurses in Tech was to create a community for nurses where they could come together and we could have conversations about what is happening and what are the options at the intersection of nursing and technology. That's the end goal. That's the product. That's the only product. Everything else we do, you guys hear me say this, is extra, right? But the reason that's important is because a lot of times people start businesses, and once you start a business idea that you didn't test and you didn't actually talk to the people in who are the clients or who might be the buyers of the product, now you've created a product that you have to make work because you didn't get the actual end users to validate the product. Yes. When you started have an MVP, you have the opportunity to start a lean business. You can actually get the people involved, get feedback, and now you don't have to feel like a loser and go all the way back to the drawing board because you can make those updates, right? To your business, to your services. And you want to have conversations with people that are the stakeholders on all sides of your business. So I'm sorry, I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
No, that's good. I honestly, to add on to that too, I think it's really important that you may not gain traction right away from your business. So like if you see that where you're not getting a lot of interest or something, that's not a failure either. It could take time. Our first event that we did, we had only like 100 people come out. We've grown to 500, 600. Now we've got, I think, almost 800 registered for the next event. So like it just grows so much, but it really takes time to have that happen. And that was something that I also kind of was like, oh no, like if we don't get this, we're going to shut it down. But I stuck with it and keep going. And that's the one big important message that I would definitely say.
Yeah. All right. We got 15 minutes. I'm going to let's open it up for questions and conversation. No question is a stupid question. No comment is a stupid comment, you guys. So jump in.
I wanted, Joe, you made a comment in the chat and I wanted you to talk about it a little bit more.
About that. Yeah.
Sorry, my phone was ringing in the background, but did you ask about a comment?
Yeah, you said early stage investor. That includes recruiting technical.
Yeah, so I just was in an event yesterday evening, a virtual event that was hosted by a venture capital fund, right? It's basically a group of professionals who have gone out to private equity and raised $400 million to invest in businesses. Right now, they started 10 years ago, so they started at 2 million, and now they have like two funds of like 800 million. They're like a pretty big venture capital fund. Like that's pretty large. And they were hosting an event for clinician founders, which is how I ended up at the event. I applied to get included because this guy named Rishika Fernandapule, who has been he's like a personal hero of mine. He's a physician. He founded a company called Iora Health. And then that company got sold in 2021 to One Medical for $1 billion. Then One Medical got sold last year to Amazon for $4 billion, right? Like he's like a kind of legend as an entrepreneur clinician. So I wanted to see him speak. Anyway, so they did a 30-minute kind of pitch. The venture capital fund pair did like a 30-minute pitch to there was like 50 clinician founders on the call. I was the only nurse on the call, right? It was all physicians, and then there was 2 physical therapists and me.
Yeah.
Okay? And we have to break that glass ceiling,
Yeah.
by the way. Like we have
Yes.
to be
Yeah.
in those calls. And that's what I said to them on my feedback is I said, this was an amazing event. I just wish there were a bunch of nurses here, you know? And like, thank you
Exactly.
for, you know, thanks for letting me into the call, like not blocking me at the door, but like, how do you guys get this, you know, because it's networks, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I just got lucky
How
that
do
a
you get the
doctor
message out there
shared this
that,
with
yeah.
me, you know, so I knew about it. But anyway, so I was bringing up Pair VC because they described themselves in the first 30 minutes of the event. And when Connor's talking, I'm thinking, this is a kind of business that they said that they're interested in. They want something that's highly scalable. They want something with a large total, this is another alphabet soup, TAM, total addressable market. So venture capitalists want to know, how big could this market be? Because the way that they get their return on investment is they end up with a little percentage of the companies that they invest in. And they want to make sure that the market's going to be big enough so that their little percent adds up to the total that they want it to be, their investment to turn into. And so I just thought of that VC fund because I was just learning about them yesterday, and they're really interested in the kind of business that you're building. They want something that gets after a real problem that has I don't know if you know, Connor, I have no idea what the total addressable market is, but it's got to be huge. Like the market that you're addressing has got to be giant.
Yeah. And I think that's really great information. I do want to say this though. Especially being in early stage, it's really important for there to be places for nurses to actually be where they can actually understand what taking venture capital money means, right?
Yeah.
Nurses are notorious. I have a nurse that is waiting to join the board of Nurses in Tech who comes, her entire family are doctors. Her mother, her father, her brothers, her sisters, her husband, and she's a nurse. She was actually a biochemical engineer first and then became a nurse. It has some heavy pull, right? But I'm going to tell you what she told me probably the second week after I put an interest out for Nurses in Tech. She said, I want to help you for the simple fact that I have seen too many nurses start great businesses and create great inventions that once doctors and big companies realize that they're going to be successful, they buy them from the nurses and then they shelf them. They never do anything with their idea, right? So why is that important? Because most businesses that nurses want to, I'm not going to say most, but in today's age, nurses, there's a lot of opportunity for nurses to start businesses that solve real problems, which means they will have the potential to be very successful. It's one thing when you go into a venture capital conversation and you know what it means and you know where you are, you know what your business is going to do, you know where you want to be, right? You know you got to know what you want to happen versus going into these conversations and then you're at the mercy of these companies, right? So that also goes back to understanding negotiation, right? A lot of nurses just want, look, you come to me. If a company was to come to me 5 years ago and Nurses in Tech was my business and they said, I'm going to give you $1 billion for Nurses in Tech, I'd probably be like, okay, where do I sign at? I am signing right now, right? If a company comes to me, and I'm not going to say if, because I have venture capital conversations all day, every day, mostly now. And I know what I'm looking for. I know what I want and what I don't want. I know what I'll do and what I don't want to do. Nurses in Tech is not a business that I created for me and my kids. It was created because it was needed. So it's a business that should be run by nurses 100 years after I'm gone. I know how long I'm willing to work in it. I know how long I want to hold a position in it. I know what's coming the next year. But I also know, because I know all these things and I know the longevity that I see, I'm very particular. If you're a venture capital company, you're probably not for me unless you're willing to negotiate some things that I know cannot change and will not change. Does that make sense? So my reason for saying that is I think, and we've talked about this as Nurses in Tech, is creating opportunities for nurses to actually learn and understand the business landscape of funding, especially venture capital. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think what's bad is nurses going into it not understanding exactly what it means and how it could help them and not knowing what they need. Like nurses that have businesses today, we show up a lot of times we show up at the mercy of people, not realizing we're actually the badass, and they should be showing up
Oh,
for
yes,
us to
absolutely.
interview them.
Absolutely. That's a psychological shift that I think all of us have to make, is realizing that, I mean, there's these models inside venture capital. One is a studio model where they come up with an idea and then they go and recruit people to like realize that idea, right? So they came up with the idea, but then they hire people to do it. And who are the people they're hiring? Some of them are nurses, right? And then there's the incubator model where the entrepreneur clinician is the one that has the idea, and then the venture capital fund helps them realize it, right? So my company, we are creating both of those models inside our company for nurses, because we know, well, first of all, we're not trying to own them. We are not trying to squeeze every ounce of value that we can get out of nurses and keep it for ourselves, because we are nurses, right? But we also know that venture capital, the timing for that matters so much in a business. If you let the fox in the hen house too early, they will ruin your company. They will take it in a totally different direction than what you ever wanted it to be. So you have to get to that sacred, minimum viable product, and maybe even beyond, before you start to sell parts of your company, because otherwise they're going to change the direction of it and make it something else. And so we're trying to help nurses and nurse practitioners, just like what you said, Amanda, is like learn all of those entrepreneurial knowledge base, but also be in a safer environment to build their company. Like this organization, where you can learn from your peers, that you can actually get the references of oh, I'm reading this book, like what Connor just said, right? And then you go, oh, okay, I'm going to check that book out, right? And so that's what I think a lot of us are trying to do right now, which I'm so excited about, because it seems like we're all popping up at the same time,
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Well, the motto in Nurses in Tech is collaboration is gold. So we are in talks of somewhat along the same lines, Joe. So listen, there is no competition. If you ask me, I think the more we all collaborate together and assist one another, the stronger we can all be. So I'd love to have a conversation with you here in the near future about some of the things you're doing. I think what's really important, and I don't do pitches for Nurses in Tech on these calls because I just don't, but I will say this. I think Nurses in Tech is a community. Well, hold on. Maybe I'll let Connor tell y'all, because it would be better if Connor tells you why he's a member of Nurses in Tech, how he's helping you guys.
I think this is something that I joined Nurses in Tech because I was looking for some sort of community that was nursing led and there's a lot of innovation in. Everywhere that I've been so far, I was mostly the only nurse in these conversations. I was the only one that was able to kind of have these conversations about healthcare. Everyone else was in different business kind of areas. Once I saw Amanda's LinkedIn post pop up on my LinkedIn feed, I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. So I decided to join pretty early on. I hopped on, I think I was after the first week of the post. And I was all in for it. I thought this was such a good opportunity, and I've connected with so many different nurses now in terms of what they're doing, and there's a lot of innovation going on, and it's a lot more supportive because every nurse understands every nurse. Where all these other communities I've been involved in, it's a lot more difficult because I'm the only nurse there. They don't understand it from the nursing perspective, and I think that's a really important kind of key aspect as well.
Yeah. So I think Nurses in Tech for me was supposed to be a community for nurses to come together, and we have these conversations, which creates a synergy for us to come up with new businesses, new inventions, and to really put us back at the front of healthcare, right?
Yes.
So the community is that's the product. We're a human-centric community. So you're not gonna there's not free ebooks and free courses and all this that you go on and all that. It's all human interaction. Now, as every day at Nurses in Tech, things are changing. I'm getting new ideas through the cultivation of conversation. There are so many things that I see that we could provide to help nurses just cut through all the difficulties. But I feel like this community is every day. I feel like we have accomplished what we needed to accomplish. Now, does that mean we have arrived? We have not. There's so much work to be done. But these conversations always get my brain to pumping because we have nurses from all around the world, from different areas of, social economic status, professional status, gender wise, right? And we're bringing together all of these experiences, all of these ideas, right? And then we take them and we say to one another, Michael, what you're working on is needed. I see the need. This may be my suggestion, right? Or this is how I can support you. This is who in my community can support you. And now we're all working together in this very intentional way to support you so that you're not feeling like you're alone, right? And it could be the craziest of questions, right? You might have a question. I mean, it's always the simplest things. Like, what do I do for my graphics, right? Even before I started this and I was a nurse with a business, I would go out here and I would find people. I paid thousands of dollars to coaches that weren't nurses, graphic designers that weren't nurses, people to do the website, people to write stuff for me, people to tell me how to do this. I mean, thousands upon thousands of dollars just to be like, it was cool for a minute. I send it out to my family and my friends. I'd market it for a minute. This is what I'm doing. And then in a month or so, I'm like, I'm not using this anymore. I'm not even feeling this. This is not what I wanted. It doesn't look right. I don't like it. And now I'm even lost because is this what I really wanted to do? So I thought to myself, if there is a place where nurses could share experiences and learn from other people and just have the support that they need on this journey, it's priceless, right? Yes, please connect. I think if you are not connected with the individuals on this call, please do so. And LinkedIn, I think most people here are connected with me, but Connor just put his LinkedIn in the chat. So please connect with Connor. I know we have 2 minutes left. If you are interested in understanding more about nurses in tech, please let me know. You can shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Everybody on this call is connected with me on LinkedIn, so I'm going to just leave it at that. And we can have a conversation about where you are, where you want to go, if this is a right fit for you. And then keep following Nurses in Tech. Our next session is next week. We'll be talking to another great founder, Tasaya, who is also a nurse, who founded a great organization called Together. So you guys will get to hear more about that. Before I let Connor close us out, I'm going to ask, please share Nurses in Tech's information and events with nurses that you know that might benefit from just being a part of this conversation. All nurses can join these conversations. They don't have to be a member of tech. We're not going to pressure them to be a member of Nurses in Tech. But what do they say? Sharing is caring. Helping a fellow nurse find out about this organization and the conversations that we're having could literally be the pivotal place for a nurse who is on the brink of making a career decision, a business decision, or even just a leadership decision. Or maybe they just need to be supported and lifted up where they are.
Exactly, yeah. Or they're
I'm
looking
going to
for
let
knowledge.
Connor close us out.
Yeah. Thank you guys, everyone, for coming to this. I'm super excited that you could hear my story, and feel free to reach out to if you have any questions or want to connect further. And I can always give you a glowing review about Nurses in Tech as well. I've learned so much from them, and I've gained a lot of resources as well. I think that's really important too. We've got a whole Slack community, and that's one of the most important things that I've been utilizing. So yeah, thank you again. It was really nice meeting everyone too.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys. Have a good day.
And thank you, Amanda,
Bye.
for hosting this again.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.